How do you create an invoice as a freelancer? Coming up. Hello and welcome back to the Freelanceverse. I hope you're all doing well. Thanks so much for coming back to the channel. This week I want to talk to you about the sweet joy of invoicing. Well, I say sweet joy, I actually don't like it at all to do invoicing. It's quite a tedious task, but in the end it's still very cool because it's how we get paid. It's our salary, right? So it's really important that you do it regularly. So how I'm going to structure this video, I'm going to first tell you about invoicing in general, a few things about taxes, a few things about regularity, when to do it, etc. What's the benefit? And then I think the best is just a practical example. So I'm going to switch to the screen and show you how I actually do my invoices and show you a final product of a pro forma invoice that I can show you. And I will also link in the description below a template to this. So if you want to use what I'm using, feel free to do so. So as I said in the beginning, regularity is really important when it comes to invoicing. You want to have a fixed date or a fixed day in the week kind of when you do your invoices. Some people do it at the end of the week, for example. Some people do it once a month, some maybe once a quarter even, which is a bit too late for my opinion. How I do it once a month, every first Monday of every month. And if by any chance, like tomorrow actually would be the first Monday in April, but it's Easter Monday, so I'm not going to work, so I'm just going to do it on Tuesday. And if you have this kind of system, it's best to just stick with it and do it whatever happens. I know it can be hard sometimes because the more clients you have, the more different clients you have. Everyone will have some kind of different system, so it takes a lot of time to do invoicing. When I do invoicing, it takes maybe between 1 and 2 hours, and of course that's a big chunk out of a working day, right? In the beginning, I used to do it on the weekends because I didn't want to do unpaid work during the week. But then I realized it's just part of it, right? You just have to calculate it into your price in the beginning. Now I try to do it every first Monday and it works quite well. Now, why regularity is so important is because if you really stick to it, you do invoices always on the same day, then you also get paid always in the same rhythm, right? At least if you have well-paying clients, which I really hope you do because that's a hassle no one wants to deal with. Anyways, luckily enough, my clients pay always on time and always regular. So as long as I make my invoices on the same date, I have a regular income, right? Always on the same days I get paid, and it feels like a salary, which I really like, because if you work and you always think, oh, when is this big job payment coming in? You know, when is this and this coming in? I don't really want to live like this. I want to just have a steady income once a month. Different clients pay at different times, so it's like almost getting a couple of different salaries throughout the month, which is kind of cool. Now, the invoicing system can be really strictly regulated, and it's so important that you check your own country's laws, right? So wherever you live, just check in Google freelancer invoicing Belgium, freelancer invoicing Germany, whatever. There will be an English site nowadays because people do freelancing from all over the world. And if there isn't an English site, just Google in your native language and check the rules that come with it, right? Taxes might be different, VAT might be different in your country. What I'm showing is a generalized approach. It works from the Netherlands, it worked from Switzerland, and it's also working from Belgium. So I'm using the invoicing tool from Probst. So it's really kind of an overall European approach to invoicing. And I think most of it you can also take on. You are legally obliged to do invoicing, right? You can't just write your client an email and tell him, hey, please pay me this. That's not official, right? As soon as you register as a freelancer, you're legally obliged to make invoices. Make sure you have a backup somewhere, because if you get audited by a tax authority, which is rather unlikely as a freelancer, but you never know. I've heard some people who got hit with an audit. You need to be able to provide all your tax statements, all your sales invoices, as well as all your receipts that you deducted in the taxes, right? But this video is not about taxes. That's another video that's coming up, just to make sure that you understand why you have to do invoicing. Now, I know if you have different clients, they will have different systems, right? Every client that I have has a different invoicing system, which can be quite tedious. It can be quite complicated, but in the end, yeah, you just have to cater to them, I guess. The easiest ones are just the small agencies or the small direct clients. I just do an invoice, I send it by email, and that's it, right? But the bigger corporations, they have their own implemented system where you have to upload your invoice, you have to check all the boxes, etc. What's really important is that I have one client that I don't really have to do an invoice. There's a system and I click generate invoice and that's it, right? What's really important there is that I still make my own invoice. Even though I don't send it out to the client, you still have to have one of your own with your ongoing series of invoicing numbers and your VAT, etc., that you put into your files. That's called a pro forma invoice, right? You don't send this out to the client because they have their own system that they will pay you, but you still need one just for your filings, and me for my accountant, because I have an accountant, so I have to send him all my invoices, and I can't just have 15 of my own and then one of that looks different in style, right? Just a quick side note that also fits kind of in this topic. Very large projects, especially if you don't know the client yet, it makes sense to charge and invoice something upfront. You can also do that, right? So imagine you found a new direct client and it's the very first time that you're working with them, and the project is like, I don't know, 6,000-7,000 euros. Maybe it takes you a month or something, and then after all this work, just send one invoice, and you never know if they will pay because I've never worked with them before, right? What I do in these situations, at least when it's over 1,000 euros, I ask 20%, 50%, as much as you like, as much as you can negotiate as well. And then you just write a pro forma invoice for the first chunk, and then in the end a complete overall project invoice for the whole thing. Also make sure you keep kind of a system. For me it's an Excel file where I keep my orders, and there I also check the due dates of my invoices and if they are paid or not, right? Because there's nothing worse than just sending out invoices on time and then not checking if they are paid, because you forget. It's impossible to keep track of all of this, like if they pay after a month, if they pay after 15 days, some pay after 45 days, you know. Different companies have different payment practices, which I don't really like. I think it should be fair that I decide my payment terms, you know, and for most of my clients that's the case, but some big corporations, they just say we pay at this time for all of our vendors, and yeah, can't really do anything about it. So make sure you keep track whenever something comes in. Maybe have an alert on your phone when you get a payment. And sometimes I go back like 2 months and see if there is something open, and then I quickly send an email, hey, this hasn't been paid yet, what's up with that? Okay, I think that's all the theoretical info I have. Let's make this actually practical, right? I'm going to switch angle to the screen and show you how I make an invoice. Okay, I hope you guys can see me like this. I'm balancing you on a bunch of board games here. So as you can see on the screen, I'm on Probst.com. It's where I make my invoices. So I thought it's best to also do this here. I think if you are a translator watching this and you have a Probst membership, for me, it's the best way to do it. It's very simple, and it caters to a translator's needs. So you go to tools up here and then you click invoices. So this is the overall mask of the invoicing tool. And here on the top right, you have different tabs. One is called invoices and one is called clients. These are the ones that are relevant. First, before you can make an invoice for a specific client, you need to create this client in your system. So let's do this for a test client. So I click on clients up here, and I'm gonna blur all my clients here. I don't want to show that. And then on the top left, you can add a new client. And then up here you have client name. So I'm just gonna write test client, let's do that. And then also address line, test road in Testington. Tax ID, that's where you put the VAT number of your client. You can either ask that from your client, or on the website it's usually there as well. What you also need as a mandatory field that needs to be filled is the contact name. So you just write something test and then an email address. Okay, and then you can go all the way down. These are just templates, but I'm not using them for like email. I just use my own emails. You could actually use Probst that directly sends the email here, but I'm just using my own email. So I click on save down here. Yes, okay, client saved. Now I have made a client named test client. Now I go on the top right, I go to invoices, because now I want to invoice this test client an actual invoice. Again, I'm going to blur this stuff here, and on the top left I click create a new invoice, right? So this is a template of an invoice that I can now just fill in, you know. It's very simple and easy, just for small invoices like freelancers invoices. This is perfect. So on the top left I click on the drop down menu for client, and I choose my thing that I just made called test client. Invoicing date is probably the date of, today always. I never have to change that because that's when you make the invoice, right? And the terms due on receipt, you can choose what you want, net 15, net 30, net 45, net 60. Now usually all my invoices are net 30, except for 2 clients, one pays in 45 and one pays in 15. And then due date, you don't have to add anything because net 30, it will just choose if you make it on the 4th of April, it will just choose the 4th of May for net 30. Purchase order is very important. You have to add here the PO of your client. So the invoice, or not the invoice, the order number of your client, right? It's like a reference for them, and it's really important that something is in here. And even if they don't give you a PO number, either ask them quickly via email or write something that's very indicative of this specific job. So if you do a translation for a skiing company, for example, maybe write here ski or something, but it's best to just have a purchase order. And then this is your invoice number. Now you have to start a system for your invoicing numbers. Now for me, I start with 11 and then the year. So 1/1/2021 is the first invoice of this year. And then I go up and up and up. So my last used, as you can see, was 2021. This is quite useful, this last use, because now I would just use the 2021 basically. This is my invoice number for this invoice, right? And it's important that you have this something that's always adding up. Yeah, just for your tax reasons, it's good to have a system that's growing. Currency for me is euro, template is English. Then here, description. It's important that you write quite descriptive what you're doing, right? So for me, it would, for example, be French to German translation, ski project, and then I would write maybe 24th of March 2021. It tells you what it is, what the service it is, what's the project, and when I did it, right? And then it depends, of course, if you charge it by the word, if you charge it by the hour, if it's a flat rate, etc. This you can do by unit. The standard default is a word rate. So for example, if this project was, let's say, 2,300 words, right? And my word rate is like 14 cents, let's say, for the purpose of this example. And then it immediately calculates. So if it was 2,300 words for 14 cents, then you get paid 322 euros. If they just pay you a flat rate, so then you have one flat rate, they paid you 200 euros, for example. And then it also adds up. If you have an hourly rate, you say you've worked on this job for, let's say, 4.5 hours, and they pay you 60 euros per the hour, you get 270 euros, Just, depends on your unit price, of course. There you can give any discounts if you want. I've never used this before. I don't give discounts, I guess. And then the taxes is also important. Make sure you really know about the taxes, right? In Europe, there is a thing called, in English, it's called VAT shifted. If you send someone an invoice that's working within the European, what is it called? European Economic Area, right? Yeah, European Economic Area. So it's more than the EU, because Switzerland and Norway and Iceland, for example, are also within the EEA. So if you charge someone an invoice within the EEA, you don't have to put VAT on your invoice. What you then have to do is, when you click here on taxes, I have a thing called VAT shifted. So I have to click on this because the client then has to deal with VAT on their own side. If I were to send this invoice to someone in Belgium, so within your own country, then you have to charge VAT, and then you have to claim it back at the end of the year. So make sure you know about VAT. And let's say it's a client from Switzerland, so it's VAT shifted. So it doesn't add here the 21%, that's usually for Belgium. Invoicing notes is usually where I add my account. So I would write a payable account, and then I would just add my banking info, BE something like my IBAN. Of course, it's not my real IBAN, don't try. And my name and the name of my bank. You can also write your PayPal here if that's something you're using. Basically that's it. Let's write my name here, and then that's already everything, I think. Yes, so I would click on save, and it creates my invoice. As you can see on top here, it created 21/2021. Here you can click export to PDF, so let's do that now and go through the invoice together. So we have here our invoice in a PDF format. As always, everything blurred that you shouldn't see. As you see, it's very simple. It's not something fancy, right? If you want, you can add a logo maybe on top here, but in the end, like, your invoices don't need to be fancy, right? Of course, it looks not very appealing, but in the end, yeah, they just need to pay you. That doesn't matter. So on top right, you have your invoice, your address, as I said. Top left, you have your client invoice that I just created, this test client. And here, invoicing number, very important that it's on it. Also, my VAT number has to be in the address. You can't see it now, but make sure that it's on your VAT number as well as the client's VAT number are on it. Net 30 days. My Excel sheet, I would have the 4th of May as a due date, and it turns red once the 4th of May is passed. So once it turns red in my Excel and it's not paid yet, I reach out to the client. The PO number of the client is here, also important, so they can actually, use it as a reference. And then my description of the translation, 4.5 hours at 60 euros, so it gets 270 euros that's paid to me, and my account down here. So yeah, that's all that's to it. And now this invoice, I would name it something that's very clear, very descriptive. So I would say invoice, then the invoice number, and then my name. And then I will prepare an email with a subject line that says something like invoice services March 2021, Adrian Probst, as the subject, so people really know what it is. And I put the importance to high, so it gives a little exclamation mark next to it, and that's it. I sent this out to all my clients, except for the ones that have online systems where I have to upload the invoice, etc. There it's a bit different, but I can't really show you this process because it's individual to any client, right? So yeah, I hope this helps you out. Let me know in the comments if you already wrote your first invoice. Good luck if you haven't, it's gonna happen, I know it. I'm gonna link a template of this down below, so if you want to use this, feel free to do so, or feel free to use the Probst.com invoicing tool. Thanks for watching, make sure to subscribe and like the video, and I see you next Monday with another video. Bye bye.